The Talking Points memo is more bad news for the American media. So, the Associated Press, in association with the Robert F. Kennedy Human Rights Organization, has put out a study. It's an interesting study. I'm going to give you the highlights. 3/4 of American adults say the news media is increasing political polarization. Okay? Just under a half of American adults say they have no trust in the media's ability to report the news fairly and accurately. 4 in 10 say the press is hurting American democracy. Now, those are pretty strong numbers from an organization that is not conservative, to say the least. 1/3 of American adults say they see stories with false claims from politicians or misleading headlines every day. 6 in 10 say the news media bears blame for the spread of misinformation. Okay, so these numbers are true in my opinion, based upon my expertise and analysis of the country. And the reason is that corporations now have taken over the television news industry. They were always in charge from the time television was founded, Edward R. Murrow. All right, the corporations were always in charge. But there was a firewall between the actual journalism and the corporate offices. All right, they weren't supposed to intrude, the profit makers, but that is broken down 100%. And now the so-called journalists who work for corporations in many cases are told what to do. And a lot of people think, well, it's all based on ideology. It's not. Most of it's based on profit. And we saw that with the Fox News Dominion lawsuit, that Fox was worried if it told its core audience that there wasn't proof that their election was a fraud, that audience would go over to Newsmax, which was pretty much saying that it was a fraud. And so Fox decided to go along with that and got into all kinds of trouble. And the unintended consequences are going to ripple out for the next year or two. This is not over. Now, let me give you 2 very clear examples of how the corporation intrudes on the media's honesty. The first on the left is climate change. All right. So people believe what they want to believe. And now every storm that occurs in the United States is because of climate change. Every snow, every rain, every wind, every tornado, every hurricane, it's all climate change. The left buys into that. And the president of the United States, the first thing he did when he took office was attack the fossil fuel industry. You'll all remember that. And he's passed, from our calculation, almost $400 billion in spending on fighting climate change. The unintended consequence of that was a spur of inflation. You saw inflation whip up as the gas prices went crazy because the future market in the oil industry went up, and because President Biden was attacking it with regulations and everything else. That's on the left, and that has influenced and affected every single American that does anything. On the right, you have election fraud on January 6th. Again, people believe what they want to believe, and many Trump voters did not want to believe that he lost the election to Joe Biden. It was a close election. 4 states, and the vote margins in those states were tiny, infinitesimal even. So many of the Trump voters refused to accept the electoral count as legitimate. That's where the Dominion voting machines came in. Okay. The second one is January 6th. And this is where Tucker Carlson got into trouble. So people believe what they want to believe, and some on the right raised the specter of a false flag operation that was driven by the FBI or whoever. They caused the intrusion, the riot at the Capitol. and, Ray Epps, and on and on and on and on. So when you back or put yourself out to a theory, and there's nothing, by the way, wrong with believing the election was a fraud. If that's your opinion, that's your opinion. But you can't say it's fact. The false flag operation on January 6th, that's even shakier, because there really isn't anything that indicates that. On the left, Biden's $400 billion in spending, what has that reaped? Chaos in Texas. The wind couldn't keep up. And again, driving the traditional fuels to a point that punishes Americans. Now, all of this should have been reported accurately by the media, and it was not. It wasn't. Russian collusion wasn't reported accurately. It's what the management is telling you to do for profits. MSNBC could not exist if it covered the news in a fair way, because its audience is 95% liberal. Fox News' audience is 95% conservative. When I was there, it was 50% conservative just 6 years ago. 50% conservative when I was in a chair at 8 o'clock. Now it's 95%. Big money to be made in those precincts. Okay, is there any solution to this? No. The First Amendment covers expression, freedom of expression. Corporations are just going to say, look, we have the right to sue whatever we want. Now, if you want to sue us, go ahead. And Dominion did and won $800 million. So, yeah, you can get them, the charlatans in the media, but the government can't stop it. You can stop it by not watching. And we'll have a little bit more on that later. So summing up, this AP Kennedy Center study, I believe, is accurate. I do believe the media is now hurting democracy in this country. And that's why we're here. Because we don't do any of that. The chairman of the Fed is promising more pain ahead. Last year, stocks dropped a whopping 20%. 2023 could be worse. You are right to be worried. So call the only precious metal dealer I trust, American Hartford Gold. They will show you how to protect your savings and retirement accounts by diversifying your portfolio with physical gold and silver. Since I've been a client and spokesperson, the price of gold has appreciated more than 35%. So please call today and they'll have physical gold and silver delivered right to your door or put inside your IRA or 401k. They have thousands of satisfied customers and have the highest rating in the country with an A+ rating from the Better Business Bureau. Please tell them Bill O'Reilly sent you, and they will give you up to $5,000 of free silver on your first order. Please call 866-501-5201. That's 866-501-5201, or text Bill to 65532. Again, that's 866-501-5201, or text Bill to 65532. Thank you for watching the No Spin News. To watch the full episode anytime on BillO'Reilly.com, please sign up to become a premium or concierge member. Visit BillO'Reilly.com to sign up and start watching today.